In this video lecture, we will be discussing on topic virus. In that, we will see the definition, then we will see the natural habitat, general characteristic, nutrition, classification and reproduction in viruses. The term viruses has been derived from the Latin which means poison. Virus which means poison. Or we can say that always harmful. Viruses. What is virus? Virus are the non-cellular infectious agent. Non-cellular, which means that they do not have cellular organization. Viruses do not have cellular organization, which means that they do not have cytoplasm or cellular organelles. There is the absence of cellular organelles. And infectious agent, which means that they can cause infection. The study of virus is known as virology, and the scientist who study on viruses, that is known as virologist. So in the virus there are the three terms. Virus, they are the non-cellular infectious agent, or you can also say is that they are a cellular infectious agent. Study of virus, that is known as virology, and the scientist who study on virus, that is virologist. So these are the three terms: virus, virology and virologist. By looking at the definition of virus says that virus is an obligate intracellular parasite. Obligate, which means that they require strictly. And intracellular parasite, which means that they love to be inside the host cell and they will take up the nutrient from the host cells. Okay, virus is an obligate intracellular parasite. They grow and multiply in the host. They particularly require the host, in that they can grow and multiply. It is consist of nucleic acid, either DNA or RNA. It contains nucleic acids such as DNA or RNA, but never both at a time. They either contain DNA or they either contain RNA. In habitat, we will see viruses are found in almost all the ecosystem. Viruses are not able to survive without the living host. Without the living host, they cannot survive. They require strictly a host for their survive. For their habitat, they require the host. And they can infect. They can infect all a living form. Such as we can say animal, plant, bacteria, etc. So these are the habitat. They can found all the ecosystem. They strictly require the host and they can infect all the living forms such as plant, animal, bacteria, etc. In general characteristic, they are ultra microscopic and can pass through bacteria filters. Okay, in the general characteristic we can also add one point, that is they are obligate intracellular parasite. They are filterable we can say, because they can pass through bacteria proof filter. To filter the virus we required ultrafiltration. To filter the virus we required ultrafiltration, or if you want to obtain the virus, then we can use the ultrafiltration, and we can also go for ultracentrifugation. Ultracentrifugation, or we can use ultrafiltration, and observe under the electron microscope. To observe the virus, we required electron microscope. We cannot observe in the light microscope. Viruses are the infectious agent with both living and non-living characteristic. They shows both living as well as non-living characteristic. They shows the living characteristics such as they reproduced at a fantastic rate but only inside the host cell. They particularly require the host cells in that they grow and multiply, and they can also mutate. Non-living characteristic such as they are acellular. Acellular, which means that they do not contain cytoplasms or cellular organelles. There is the absence of cytoplasms, or we can say cellular organelles. They carry out no metabolisms on their own way. They do not carry out any kind of metabolism on their own way and must replicate using the host cell's metabolism machinery. Whenever they grow and multiply, they use the host cell machinery, metabolic machinery, because they do not carry out any kind of metabolisms on their own way. Whatever they carry out the function, they use the host cell machinery. This is the structure of virus. Virus contain either DNA or RNA. They do not contain both. They either contain DNA or RNA. Nucleic acid is surrounded or coated by a protein shell that is known as capsid. This is the nucleic acid. Surrounding the nucleic acid, this is the capsid. You can see this is the nucleic acid and the capsid. Surrounding the nucleic acid, there is the coat that is known as a capsid, and the capsid, it is made up of protein, and capsid is composed of many capsomers. Okay, and some viruses possess a membrane-like envelope surrounding the particle. Surrounding the capsid is the envelope. This is the envelope. This is the envelope, you can see. Okay. Nucleic acid is surrounded by a capsid. Nucleic acid is surrounded by a capsid that is known as, that is made up of protein, that is made up of capsomers. And surrounding the capsid is the envelope, which is made up of a protein, lipid or carbohydrates, and in some viruses envelope is present and some viruses envelope is absent. That we can say that naked or non-envelope. Some envelope viruses have spike. You can see the spike over here. This is the spike. Okay, some envelope viruses have spike which help them to get absorbed or attached on the host cell membrane, and from the spike will provide the passage the nucleic acid into the host cells. Virus has a specific host. They require a specific host. For example, bacteriophage. Phage means virus. Bacteriophage, which means that this is the virus. Bacteriophage is the virus that required a specific host. Examples such as bacteria. Bacteriophage infect the bacteria. This is the virus. This is the host. Another example I can give, mycophage. Mycophage. Phage means virus. This is the virus that can infect the host such as fungi. Like this way, another I can give the example, cynophage. Cynophage. Cynophage is the virus that can infect the cyanobacteria. Cyanobacteria. So, viruses has a specific host. In that we have seen the three examples: bacteriophage that infect the bacteria, mycophage that infect the fungi, cynophage that infect the cyanobacteria. They lack cytoplasm and cytoplasmic organelles that we have already seen. They are acellular, or we can say they are the non-cellular. Size is measured in nanometer. The size of the virus that is measured in the nanometer. So this are the general characteristic of viruses. And different viruses has a different structure. For example, there are the HIV virus is there, influenza virus, TMV virus, which means that tobacco mosaic virus, polio virus, hepatitis virus. This all virus has a different structure. In the general characteristic, what we had seen, first thing, they are the obligate intracellular parasite. They can pass through the bacteria proof filter. They can be obtained by the ultracentrifugation, ultrafiltration, or we can observe through the electron microscope. Then we have seen the characteristic of living and non-living. And viruses has a specific host. They require a specific virus that infect the specific host. And they are the acellular or non-cellular, we can say, because they have the lack of cytoplasm and cytoplasmic organelles, and they are measured in the nanometer. And the one thing that we should remember, that is the virus can be cultivated in the tissue, or they require a specific tissue or chicken embryo to cultivate the virus. Then we have seen the general structure of viruses, as they either contain DNA or RNA. Then we have seen the nucleic acid is in the center, that is surrounded by a capsid, which is a protein made up of capsomers. And surrounding the capsid, there is the envelope that we have seen. Surrounding the capsid, there is the envelope. And envelope is made up of protein, lipid or carbohydrates. Some envelope viruses have spike in it. Okay, now we will see the classification. Most widely used classification till date, that is Baltimore classification. For the classification of virus till date we are using, that is Baltimore classification, which is based on type of nucleic acid, such as either double stranded or single stranded DNA or double stranded or single stranded RNA. Just for your information, I can give some of the example of double stranded RNA, such as rhinovirus is the double stranded RNA. Single stranded RNA virus, that is the TMV virus, rabies virus, HIV virus, influenza virus. These are the single stranded RNA virus. Double stranded DNA virus is there, such as example we can say that adenovirus, herpes virus. These are the double stranded DNA virus. Okay, if we talk about the nutrition, they obtain the nutrient from the host cells, thus they depend on the host for the nutrition, because they multiply, they grow inside the host cells. So entirely depend on the host cells for the nutrient. They are totally depend on the host cells, and from the host cell they take up the nutrient. If we talk about the reproduction in viruses cannot multiply itself. Only its genetic material is capable of reproduction within. So viruses cannot divide itself. Only its genetic material such as DNA or RNA is capable of reproductions within the host cells. In the simple way we can say that they cannot reproduce but multiply within the host cells. They multiply and grow inside the host cells, but they cannot reproduce. How do viruses that differ from the living organisms? Viruses are not living because they are incapable of carry out all the life processes. Viruses are made up of cell. They are not made up of cells. They cannot reproduce on their own way. They strictly require the host for that to multiply. They do not go or undergo the division process. They do not transfer energy. They lack the machinery for the protein synthesis. They entirely depend on the host cells. And these are the all about the viruses. In that we have seen the definition of viruses. Then we have seen the general habitat. For that habitat they depend on the host cells and they can infect the all form of life. Then we have seen the general characteristic. Then we have seen the classification. In the classification till that we are using the Baltimore classification, which is based on the type of nucleic acid. Either the virus has a double stranded or a single stranded DNA or double stranded or a single stranded RNA. In the nutrition they are entirely dependent on the host. Then we have seen the reproduction. In the reproduction they can multiply within the host cell.